I have these friends, Dan and Sheila. They're podcast hosts.
Welcome to Profiling Criminal Minds. I'm Dan.
And I'm Dr. Redmond.
And we finally pulled the trigger and started watching Profiler, as the title of this episode would suggest. Yeah, yes, I badgered you into it.
Yes.
And please?
Go on.
No, I was just
in your defense.
In my defense, it's not like you suggested some other thing we could watch.
No.
Not like you had any other pitches.
Well, no, not any other pitches that we could find easily.
That's the real
or anything.
Issue.
Yeah, I mean, we're down to the. I mean, I don't know whether we should now switch to say South Korean television or something, and do some of because they've got lots of
that's true.
Weird and serial killer stuff. Like we could watch The Good Detective.
Apparently, The Good Detective deals with serial killers a lot.
Yes, it does.
Yeah. So, all right. Some we're going to talk about, but first, we're going to be watching a little show called Profiler.
Oh, God.
Which, and I can't stress this enough, premiered 1 month before Millennium. Which just feels weird to say. That, like, exactly 1 month before Millennium, almost to the day, was the first episode of this.
And guess which one idea. I prefer.
Well, obviously. I'm not saying this is better than Millennium. I'm not insane. But I just think it's fascinating.
Yeah, it is. Well, it's also, right? It's that 98, I guess,
96.
Right? 96. And it only, I mean, the only saving grace in all of this is that it only lasted 4 years.
Well, it did outlast Millennium.
Well, yes, it did outlast Millennium by a year.
Yeah, by a year.
And
as tragic as that is true.
But
yes.
Okay, I watched the first 2 episodes and went,
all right.
I don't even remember them. I'm sure I did watch them. And
for a fact you saw them.
Yes, okay. But and then did not bother going, this is, nah. This is not must-watch TV for me.
Well,
compared to.
And
Medium of 2 started at this time, too.
No, Medium was 2005.
Was
10
it that
years
late?
later. Yeah. 10 years later. I know. Time can get compressed when you're talking about regular television. I completely get it. But yeah, Medium was that much later. As crazy as it sounds, that is true. Medium was 2005.
Oh my God!
I know.
And yes,
right?
and she was married to David Arquette, right?
Who?
Or she's Patricia Arquette?
Yeah, that's David Arquette's sister.
Okay, that's David's sister.
Arquettes, one of the many acting Arquettes.
And Roseanne.
Rosanna Arquette is another Arquette. Yes.
Yes, and she actually appeared on an episode in season 3.
That is not surprising.
No, not at all.
But we're not here to talk about Medium.
I'd rather talk about Medium, and it was a bad show.
It's not a good show. I can't stress this enough. Medium is not a good television show.
No, we don't suggest. Now, mind you, it I mean, it's not much watched, and Paramount has screwed up half the episodes in season 2 and 3 or whatever. Like these episodes are just. Sorry, and it keeps throwing you to CSI New York, and I keep going, why would I want to watch Gary Sinise? I had all the Gary Sinise I wanted when I watched the Beyond Borders.
Oh, yeah. Well, we're never going to forgive him for that. Yeah.
No. So consequently, why would I want it? It keeps going to the same one, eh? The very first episode, like it just because for whatever
reason. That's funny
reason,
to me, but yeah.
Yeah, no, it is hilarious, right? I do not know how many times, which is why on our Prime feed, right, you see CSI New York, and I looked at it at one point and said, "Oh, is Daniel watching that?"
No, it's just auto-starting for you.
It's auto-starting for me because Medium. Sorry, and there's this big sorry. We're having a problem with this
Medium.
episode.
How about you watch an episode of CSI New York instead? No, thank
and
you.
It opens with Gary Sinise and the lady.
Yeah.
You know,
Melina Kanakaridis.
pardon. No, that's not what I meant.
Oh.
I meant that in the harbor,
I don't know.
the French thing, the iron statue that holds up the lamp.
The Statue of Liberty?
The Statue of Liberty. I wouldn't have gotten there as I'm talking. Yeah.
All right, I'm gonna not
That should have
judge
been
you.
a clue.
Here's what I'm not gonna do today. I'm not gonna judge you. But here's the thing, and this is gonna be a weird statement. And I'm not gonna demand you watch it again. But I'm gonna make the bold argument that I think you're being too hard on the show Profiler. Because I watched these first 2 episodes and I wasn't expecting anything. All right, I wasn't expecting anything because, I don't remember it fondly. I can tell you the plot of like 20 episodes of The Pretender. Yes. I can't tell you the plot of 1 episode of this show, right? So, I know I watched some of it. Maybe I watched all of it. Who knows? I've watched, but I can definitely say it did not leave a lasting impact on me the way so many of the shows. The way I can tell you about episodes of, the way I can tell you about episodes of China Beach, or the way I can tell you about episodes, weirdly, of Hardball, or, what's the Richard Grieco show with Billy Idol?
Oh, God.
I love that show. But anyway.
It's the one he did after Jump Street, and then it
was the spin-off of Jump Street, and it got canceled after 1 season.
And
it was named after whatever his character was. Booker. It was called Booker.
Booker, that's it.
Yeah, it's called Booker. I can still tell you about episodes of Booker, is my point. I can tell you most of the plot of the first episode of Booker, a show I watched 35 years ago. Okay? This show, by comparison, did not make an impact on me. But what I will say was, watching the first 2 episodes, I'm like, you know what? This is fine. It's like,
okay. Well, it's like, as I would say, I know I watched Medium, but didn't know Imprint.
Yeah. But it's Medium is, I don't think it's a really iffy show in the way that Medium is. And this is what I'm going to argue. I think it's a better show than Medium.
Well, I may agree with you after I watch more of it.
Okay. So I will start with the premise and we'll see. And the thing is, I know it made no impact on you. But I'm going to start describing the episode and we'll see where you're able to jump in. All right. So, a woman is killed in Buckhead, which is a Tony suburb of Atlanta, as I understand it. In fact, I think the entire show is set in Atlanta because Julian McMahon is in every episode of the show and he plays an Atlanta cop. Like, he's not an FBI agent. So I think they just work out of Atlanta and will all of the crimes be in the vicinity of Atlanta? Maybe. I don't know. I haven't watched the show yet. It was very weird for me to see that is this all going to be set in Atlanta? Because they got a local cop. And so when I get to the second episode, you remember how in the first episode of Criminal Minds, right, Elle talks about how she's a sex crime specialist, and it made us think that she was like a local Seattle cop because there is no sex crimes investigations in the FBI. And we gradually figured out that, no, that was her specialist back when she was in a police officer before joining the FBI. But how it's really strangely worded and confusing in that first episode. So when I saw that Julian McMahon, star of Charmed and Nip Tuck, who's in this, was playing an not playing an FBI agent, I'm like, is this going to be one of those things where they change the premise in the second episode? And I'm like, no, they're just continuing to investigate crimes in Atlanta. Okay. I was genuinely very surprised.
It's the FBI office in Atlanta, I guess.
Yeah.
Well, Atlanta was a big city even back 20 years ago.
No, it's a big hub. I
25 years ago.
Yeah, 25 years ago.
Geez.
Sorry, did not mean to make you feel old, but yeah, there it is. This is a show this is not an exaggeration. It premiered 28 years ago.
Yeah.
So sorry about that.
Well, I mean, the most enjoyable part. So it's set in Atlanta.
Yeah. Where there's an artistically filmed scene with jump cuts and black and white of a woman lounging around her home. And then a guy breaks in a window and she screams, and we cut to the cops arriving, Julian McMahon arriving to figure out what's going on. Right? And they talk about how they need to get the Bailey Malone, Robert Davi, inventor of profiling, to come and look at it over. Meanwhile, I know. Oh, Robert Davi, we love you.
I mean, I know, but Bailey Malone.
I know, Bailey Malone.
He looks about as Irish.
I know, right?
I know.
Like, there's the old line that the
Bailey's cream and Malone.
Well, no. What I was going to say was, like, the old line is that the I know. But the point I'm getting at is the old line is that that the FBI is 100% Catholic because they hired a bunch of Italian people to help them with the mob and a bunch of Irish people to help them with the IRA, which were the two big issues the FBI was dealing with in counterterrorism and organized crime. And so you could have just made this character Italian. Like, it would have been fine. When you cast Robert Davi in the role, you are free to change the character's name. Do you think the character David Rossi was named David Rossi before he was Joe Mantegna was cast? I don't think so. I think 1 week before they started filming that episode, they were looking for any A-list actor they could find, and they got him to play a character, and then they figured everything out after they cast him. You know, if they had gotten Harvey Keitel, he wouldn't have been called David Rossi. You know?
That's exactly it. I guess now that we're talking about it, so we will talk about the plot.
Yeah.
But I'm going, there are so many weird things, right?
There are. Yeah.
Like that just throw me kind of off. Anyway, and of course it didn't help that it had Dutch subtitles.
We're watching a version of this that came off of the Dutch DVDs.
So
it's a difficult show to find. Yeah. Just don't watch the Dutch would be my suggestion.
Oh, well, no, it was okay for me. I mean, it was interesting actually for me to look at it and go, yeah, I mean, the translation is fine. Yeah. It's just that it's so much shorter because you take so many more English words to say. But that's only because I understand what the Dutch is doing. But anyway.
So yeah, the idea that Robert Davi is playing a character named Bailey Malone is insane. And of course, he immediately, it's completely insane. He of course wants to outsource the profiling. For the record, this killer has murdered 5 women in the past 5 weeks. Right?
Yes.
Like every Saturday night, this killer murders somebody. And in their own home when they're alone. No sexual assault, no clear, like no evidence, no DNA left, no fingerprints, although they do find a fingerprint at this latest scene, which we will talk about in a minute. And the killer tapes up their breasts and mouth and cuts off all their hair. And so Sam, when she, enters the, enters the
profiler.
Chat, Sam, the profiler, will say that he's, the killer is trying to destroy their femininity, which, turns out to be a pretty good guess, so I'm not going to criticize that. So Bailey wants to outsource this work to his best profiler, Sam Walker.
Yes.
No, Sam Waters. Sam Walker.
Oh, Waters.
Sam Waters. Yes. Okay.
Yeah, I think it is. I don't think it's Walker. I think
she uses
Paul.
That's her real name.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Allie Walker. That's her real name. Sam Waters. Right. And so if you've ever wanted to see just a recreation of a scene from the movie Manhunter, they just do a scene from the movie Manhunter. It's not even subtle. No, here's a scene from the movie Manhunter. I'm here because I can't look away. Like, he's just doing Dennis Farina from Manhunter. No subtlety whatsoever. I loved it. I was really happy. They're like, no, we're not going to do our own thing. We feel no need to do our own thing. It's already been done as good as it's ever going to be done. So let's just do it. I think the way I look at it is we all know why we're here, right? Because what you can say about Millennium was very much, you can say it owes quite a bit to Manhunter and that, and the idea of who the Will Graham character was. But at the same time, you can make no argument that Frank Black and Will Graham are the same character. Here, I don't see the difference,
between
her and
William Peterson.
Her and William Peterson, right? Who just 2 years later would get his own network pop show. So there you go. But yeah, so CSI. Our beloved CSI. So we just see the Profiler players present a scene from the movie. And she agrees to come in and consult, but to not let anyone know she's there. And that's the key part.
Yes.
Like, she won't do it under her real name, and she doesn't want any attention, nothing of any kind. We also find out that what she does is she goes around and she makes money by selling her photographs. But she meets an art dealer at a bar she likes to hang out in, right?
Yeah.
And she keeps so separate from everybody that she literally has the bar, like the art dealer, if he sells her photographs, gives the money to the bartender for her to pick up later. Like that is how, and it's a good way of making it seem. And her roommate is her good friend Angel, who is her sculptor.
Best friend.
Yeah,
yes.
her best friend Angel.
Well, she's a metal worker, really. Yeah.
She's
a metal sculpture.
It's sculpture in metalwork. Yes.
Yes.
And she has a studio, and they live out in this farm outside of Atlanta. So it's all very conveniently placed. All right, so she comes in to work on the case, and of course,
well, yes, we have to have the usual scene.
Oh yeah,
where he has to talk her into it, but of course she can't not do it.
Yeah, she can't not help. If she knows she can help, if she knows she can save somebody, she can't look away. Just like he can't look away. I mean, he shouldn't. I mean, and they state that thing about their relationship really clearly, and I think it's well handled in the short scenes they do. Which is that he does not want to be there. He does not want to be asking, but he doesn't know how to do it without her, and he could not live with himself if he didn't try. And he knows she feels the same way. And he knows, as he says to Angel, like, he knows he's exploiting her. Like, he knows this is a bad thing, but he doesn't see any other options. And that's what she tries to explain to her daughter as well. When her daughter...
Well, yes, I guess I've just gotten so world weary.
I know.
That I'm watching these and just going.
You were so shell shocked. I think what is honestly happens, you were so shell shocked by those who kill. Like, you just want to be done with the genre, and you weren't willing to take this on its own. Right, take this not on its own merits, but meet it on its own level, is what I'm trying to say. Okay,
that's it. I have to meet it on its own level because, I mean, the profiling scenes. So when she goes in, and and I mean, Julian is just like a pain in the ass cop.
Yeah. Who doesn't understand why she's here, and he doesn't believe in profiling and all of that stuff.
So we're getting all of that shit.
We've seen those scene we have seen 800 times.
100 million times.
And that's the thing. I understand why you're pushing back. Like 80% of this first episode is scenes the two of us have seen 100 times, 1,000 times. It's
and sometimes a lot better.
Oh, many times a lot better. Right? We've watched Hannibal. We've watched Millennium. We've seen better versions of this. And Sam, while, nothing wrong with Ali Walker's performance, she is not an instantly captivating figure the way Frank Black is. Like Frank Black or Will Graham on Hannibal, you can't take your eyes off these guys. And she does not have that impact.
No, I just... If I was to say anything right now after watching the first 2 episodes, I think she was a little miscast, but...
Yeah, I could see that.
but never mind. I mean, and then she has to give those words, and and I guess maybe it was I don't know, that the late 90s was the beginning of these. I have no idea. We'll talk later.
Yeah.
But it was, yes. So she comes in, and so she doesn't tell anybody, and well, why not?
No, she doesn't trust anybody. Well, no, and I mean, it actually makes sense, right? There is a logic to this, because Jack of all trades is the serial killer who is searching for it. I'll just quickly fast forward us to the part where we find this out. So she comes in and starts bigfooting the place because she's the expert and Julian McMahon isn't. This pisses Julian McMahon off, and he's like, "Who is this woman?" And his buddy, who works the computer, is like, "There's no record for, it's a fake name he's giving us. I have no idea who she is." Right? And so Julian McMahon's like, "Okay, well then just find me the name of every profiler who's ever worked at the FBI. There can't be that many female profilers roughly her age. There's got to be some easy way to find out who she is." So then we see Julian McMahon at home. Although there is nice they do the cute little her profiling of him, and it's like of having Chinese food in his fridge, and then we are seeing him eat the leftover Chinese food in the next scene. It made me very happy that they did that little note. I liked that a lot. So then we see him at home in what I would call a deranged at-home outfit. He is wearing, dress pants, a white long-sleeve undershirt, a white t-shirt on top of that, and then suspenders up. No, nothing about this. This. How are you dressed like this at home, Julian McMahon? Because it doesn't look comfortable. It doesn't look believable that you would be comfortable dressed like this. And it's not like he's dressed in a way to give the people at home something to look at. It's not a sexy outfit. It's not a believable outfit. Nothing about this outfit makes sense to me. I know it's a weird thing to focus on, but I was so baffled by how he's dressed in this scene.
I was baffled by a lot of things in this.
No, that's fair.
I'm
not going to disagrry.
The choices, let's just say the choices that they made.
There are some choices they make that are quite surprising. Yes, I'm not going to disagree.
Yes. And Jack of all trades.
Oh, so now we get to the backstory.
Now,
which is who she really is, Sam Waters. And in the backstory, right, the backstory is that she was looking for a serial killer, Jack of all trades. And he's a serial killer who loves murder, but his whole thing is he would kill people all across the country using different MOs. So no one even knew there was a serial killer operating, let alone that it was all the same, that all of these crimes were connected. And she figured out that these were all connected. Now, we don't know how she figured that out yet. That is not explained in the episode. I don't remember if it's ever explained, but if they want to impress us with their writing, they're gonna have to explain that at some point.
Yes.
They're gonna have to explain at some point how she figured out that there was a serial killer, right, so effectively disguising his crimes, right?
Yep.
They are going to have to explain that to us at some point. And I'm not going to...
We hope.
Well, no, they have to. You can't not explain that. There's no... I mean, I don't want to oversell this, but it's how is there a show if you don't explain that, is what I'm saying. How am I ever supposed to believe? And again, this is something the show might never do because the show doesn't feel it needs to do this. But what I'm going to say is, just as an audience member, if you want me to believe that she is brilliant... If you want me to believe that she sees things nobody else sees, and again, they've written good profiling scenes for her in this episode. I'm not saying they haven't, but if you want me to believe that, you're going to have to tell me what Jack of all trades crimes were and how she saw through that, right? Saw through his thing. That's what I'm going to need at some point. And, maybe he just maybe he killed people on a certain day whose names had alphabetical letters in a certain order, blah, blah, blah. Who the hell knows, right? I just need something.
Yeah.
But the point is, he became obsessed with her. She was looking for him, and he became obsessed with her. And the thing they didn't understand was, and so she tried to leave the case, right? Because
Yes.
he was stalking her. And so he killed her husband to motivate her to get back on the case. But instead she went into hiding. And the reason she's keeping her identity secret is the Jack of all trades case wasn't public knowledge. She wasn't going on TV talking about this guy. The only people who knew Jack of all trades existed are people in law enforcement. So literally any cop she runs into could be Jack of all trades.
She's very suspicious.
Yeah, so she's instantly suspicious of cops. I mean, the one thing I do remember when I was first watching the show is, I don't know, is it Robert Davi? Is Robert Davi the killer? It's not. You know, we actually see him at the end of the first episode. But the first time I watched the first episode, I'm like, is it going to turn out Robert Davi's the killer? It's like, no, they actually show you the kill at the end of the first episode. We just don't see his face. But we know he's a white guy who's clearly not Robert Davi. It would be quite a cheat if after showing him. All right.
Yes.
And we find out, okay, so now Julian McMahon knows the backstory. And so he apologizes and agrees to work with her in the case.
Yes. And Robert Davitt makes it clear to him that he is not to tell anybody else.
Yeah. Under no circumstances can anybody else find out about this.
The walls have
ears. Exactly. Yeah. And so he's very protective of her because he's the one who pushed her to chase after the Jack of all trades. And he's the one who he believes he's the one who got her husband killed. Right. And that it's all his fault. And now he needs to take responsibility for this family because he's the reason the family got shattered. Which, you know what? That all makes sense. Like, I totally understand where he's coming from. So yeah, like,
they didn't
psychology tracks.
Yeah. Well, the thing is that they're profilers and they should have figured that into it, except that it was still the 90s. So it was early days of profiling. And as you say, I have to give it a chance, I guess. It is the early days of profiling.
It is.
But I'm going, okay, you know, I mean, it's.
I know.
Okay.
All right.
So then what happens? Because she goes and she
looks around. Oh, she goes and she looks around the scene. Right. And notices that it looks as if the place was made up for dinner with somebody. Yeah. Right? And then she goes upstairs and she finds and she looks at the way the bedroom is organized and she thinks it's weird that the bed is like specifically aimed at this wall. And I don't know why she thinks that's suspicious, but she does. And she looks at the panel of the wall and behind a mirror is a video camera that this woman uses to tape all of the sex she has. Right?
Yes.
And so they go through there, right? They go through the videotape and they find the last one taped. There's this guy on it, but they can't really make out his face.
Yep.
And her determination is this latest killer must be a copycat.
Yeah.
Right? Because this woman had dinner with her killer. This woman slept with her killer. This woman, right? It's clear that she had some involvement with the killer, and that hasn't been true of any of the others. Any of the others, there was no clear sign of how the person broke in, but it wasn't set up for a date. So they're like, this has to be, and now we've got a picture of this guy who's probably her killer, but Sam is sure is not the killer of the rest of the women. But as Julian McMahon points out, this killer has killed every Saturday. So if this isn't the victim, where's our fifth victim?
Yeah, where's our fifth victim? And they do find
They find her right at the end of the episode. And that's when Julian McMahon formally apologizes to her for getting everything right.
Yeah.
For doubting her, for ever having doubted her.
Doubted her.
Oh, it's a fun episode. All right, so
okay, I'll have to get my boogie shoes on and put my boogie shoes on and vault myself back into the 90s.
This is what I'm saying when you look at the kind of stories they want to be telling. So they find a fingerprint because they've got this new area. They managed to find a fingerprint, and the fingerprint matches a guy and the reason they didn't think it was a copycat is that it is somewhat like all the knots used, like the killing was exactly the same way. The knots were exactly the same way. Right. But the stabs were different. With the other victims, they were completely surgical. Here, they just seemed haphazard. And the weird thing they noticed was that all of the other women, right. And this is the thing that I find so strange, but bear with me. Because I feel like they should have done a better job of investigating earlier. This woman had breast implants.
Yes.
Right? This woman had breast implants, and none of the other women did, and they thought that was strange. But the cuts were almost surgical and were around the chest. And so they go and they're like, how could this possibly be the same guy? And they're like, well, the killer has to be someone who has information. And so it turns out that the fingerprint belongs to a forensic technician who works for the Atlanta police. And so that's their killer. And we get, I'm going to say, a very well shot scene of them going to do a raid on the house. Because 6 cops line up in front of the house. And then they bust down the front door and they move through, and the camera just dollies along the side of the house. And we watch the raid in a single continuous shot just through the windows of the house as they go from room to room. We're just watching the cops room to room until they catch the guy at the back and go busting out the back window of the house. And it's all done in one shot, and it's all very clean and well presented. I was very impressed to see that on a TV show, especially in the 90s.
Yeah. Yes.
That looked great.
Because other parts of the show definitely looked like it was the 90s.
Yeah, no, totally. I'm not saying it's perfect by any stretch of the imagination. Oh, no, you're right. Okay. I'm not going to defend every part of the show.
Which is why you have to focus on the really good shots. It wasn't bad either at the farm, you know.
Oh yeah, all the shots at the farm, but yeah, like outside, a lot of it anyway. Very
a lot of it is very woo 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 woo.
Yeah. No, I agree.
And the music drove me crazy.
Yeah. Oh no, I'm not gonna. There's a lot I'm gonna defend about in this show. You're not gonna hear me defending the score of this show.
The score was
terrible and overbearing. And if you listen to the theme song is the funniest part though, because it's like, can the X-Files, can Mark Snow sue over that theme song?
I know.
It's so close.
I know. You think you're watching the X-Files.
Yeah, like that's how close the song, like it's crazy that they got away with the music for the opening theme being that close. Like it makes no sense.
Was it also on Fox?
No, this is an NBC show. Just like, again, it was the Saturday night.
Oh, yeah, The Pretender.
It was The Pretender, then Profiler every Saturday night.
Yeah.
And they have a crossover in season 3. So we can all look forward to that. All right. We're going to have to watch an episode of The Pretender. Yes, I've already gotten that episode of The Pretender. Don't worry. And then if you want to watch The Pretender after this, maybe watch The Pretender after this. Although Pretender, we might just cover like a season at a time.
Yeah. Well,
although it's episodic, so who the hell knows? Anyway, let's focus on this. So
I know.
They grab this guy, they arrest him, but Sam maintains that he's not the killer.
Yeah.
Right. And they've got another lead, which is the plastic surgeon. All of the women went to the same plastic surgeon. And this is where we find out, and this is the big clue, that all of the women had breast implants that were removed by the killer. And that's why they didn't know that the women had breast implants, because the cuts that the killer made were exactly on top of their surgery scars.
Yes.
So the ME didn't realize there were plastic surgery scars and that breast implants had been removed. They thought it was just, mutilating their breasts, but something very specific and pathological was happening.
Yes, he just took out the implants.
Yeah, took out the implants, and that's the key part. And what's interesting is, once the guy who killed, once the copycat is in custody, he is never mentioned again. And we, do not find out anything about him or why he committed that crime. How he was involved with this woman, what he felt about being videotaped, what his motivation for killing her was, why he decided to, nothing. Once he is arrested, it is no longer the purview of the show, anything about him. All right.
Well, he's not a serial killer.
No, he's not a serial killer. He killed a woman he was sleeping with. We don't know why. Let's move on. And I will say, I respected the narrative efficiency of that.
They only had 47 minutes.
They only have 47 minutes. That's my point. They're moving.
Yeah.
And so it turns out that so there's a scene where, they're prepping the raid and doing the raid, and she has gone to see the plastic surgeon, right? And down in the at the plastic surgeon's place in the basement, she runs into the doctor, who's kind of creepy, but claims to have an alibi for all the murders because he and his wife go out of town on the weekends. And so she's very suspicious. But Bailey finds out that, like, she went off somewhere alone and rushes to chase her down. And she, quite understandably, is like, why are you so panicked about this? What's actually going on here? And what's actually going on here is that Jack has resurfaced.
Yes.
And is now committing crimes that all look the same to try and get her attention.
Yeah.
Like, so that everyone knows that he's looking for her.
Mm-hmm.
And when we see the body at the end, yikes.
Yes, because he's sending messages as well.
Yeah, he is sending, he's
Robert
killing women.
Davi.
Yeah, leaving, but he is sending messages care of Robert Davi to give to her, which Robert Davi hasn't been. But, so because he hadn't been Robert Davi hadn't been passing the messages along, and she hadn't come back to it, he's just started killing women and putting, chopped up notes that they have to then reassemble in their mouths so that he essentially can't be ignored anymore. So yeah, like it all tracks why he's actually come back to see her. It turns out it wasn't just
he
about
misses her because she's the only person who's as smart as he is.
Yeah, whoever actually identified him, who saw him.
Yes,
right.
Yes,
in a in a Hannibal Lecter kind of way, he wanted to be seen, and she was the only one who actually successfully saw him ever. So yeah, like it all tracks, is what I'm saying. Like it all tracks, I think, pretty darn well. Like I find it believable.
Yeah. Okay, yeah. No, that part of the story I wasn't complaining about.
Okay.
It's okay. So, I mean, first of all, why did she go alone?
Mm-hmm.
And then let's go to the media thing.
Yeah.
Because by the end of the first episode, she's outed by the media.
Because the media sees her walking away from the crimes. Like the media has staked out the fifth murder house. Yeah.
Well, no, it's a different crime. It's a different crime. And she has said constantly that she
it's
wasn't
after she's
going.
Been caught. Yeah.
Remember?
It's after she catches. No, you're right. It's the videotape after she catches the killer.
Yeah. And there's a fire.
Yeah.
Isn't it a fire?
No, that's the next episode.
Oh, yeah. Okay. But there's another crime.
No. We'll talk about the media thing next for the next episode. At the end of this episode, she's caught on videotape, and so Jack knows she's back.
Yes, Jack knows she's back
because she's caught on video, and she's not identified. She doesn't talk to the cops, but her face is on the news, and she's like, "Oh hell!" Right? This like what I have wanted has it has now been foiled. He knows I'm back.
No, but what I don't understand is why she went to the crime scene where the media was going to be in the first place. Like that.
No. It's like, it's not like it was her, like she had to, but she had to go to the crime scene. That's how she works. She's the profiling thing. She has to go there to figure out what the killer was thinking.
Yes, I know. But in the first thing they brought her in separately. And
I know, and they could have done it more. Door. I know. She shouldn't have had to like walk down that long drive and access to the camera. He told her. Yeah.
Robert Davi told her. She said, I'm not going to go.
Yeah.
Where the media is. Robert Davi says, no, I don't want you out. The media will be there. Blah, 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 blah. And she decides, no, that she's going to go anyway because she has to see the crime scene.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
But what I'm saying is that they could have done it the same way. She could have still seen the crime scene and kept her completely.
Yeah, they could have cleared the media out. They could have like driven her up in a van and have her. You're right. They weren't as careful as they should have been. You were completely right about that.
And that drove me crazy.
That was frustrating. I'm not going to disagree. That she wasn't being more careful. No, you're
that
absolutely
she wasn't.
Right.
She's the one who's all gung ho about not wanting to be outed,
careful.
And she's changed her name and all of this sort of stuff.
So why is she suddenly being really casual about this?
Stupid about it.
Well, I mean, there is
because
wait. Before we say hold on. Before we say it's stupid, we can make the argument based on her actions in the second episode that on some level she's trying to provoke Jack.
Yes, you can You can say
I'm
that.
not ready to say
Maybe.
she's just being dumb yet. I think we have to give the show a few more episodes before we say that was quote unquote a mistake. But anyway, this is something we'll debate going forward when we have more information. I understand why you're recoiling from it. Like, I get it. But I don't think we can say 100% that was just a bad decision on her part. It might be her psychology. I mean, not sabotaging herself, but like doing what she actually wants to do. See what I'm saying?
Well, now that argument I can make. I can understand that. Yeah, that really deep down inside she wants to be back doing the job again.
And more importantly, she figures if she can trigger Jack, she'll have a chance to catch him, is my thought.
Yeah, I'm not so thinking. I wouldn't think that she was thinking that far ahead at that point.
Maybe.
But
you're right. You could be right.
Going back is not. I mean, by the second episode, yeah, as you say, in
the second episode, she is 100% strategically triggering him.
Yes, for sure. Okay. Yeah. But I'm not so sure that it's in the first episode. I think the first episode caused her to rethink. Yeah. Because she realized she really loved this job and she wanted to do it again. So then she was outed.
Yeah. And so she decided to go with it. Okay.
To go with it, right?
All right, so let's wrap up the plot of the first episode, then we'll move on to the second one where we really dig into this. All right, so.
Okay.
Jack. Okay. Oh, no, that's the end. That's the start of the second episode. Sorry. So they realize, like, did you really need her for this? So not only did all of the victims, right? All of the victims. Sorry, it was, this was the sixth victim. It was the previous five. So, but the sixth victim was a copycat. All of the victims, except for the copycat, all went to the same
plastic surgeon.
No, not only the same plastic surgeon, the surgeon,
the same psychologist.
No, psychiatrist, and that's key. Psychiatrist, you have to be a medical doctor, and that is important.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
It's so insane to me that wait. You didn't notice that not only did they all have all the victims have the same plastic surgeon, but all of them had been referred to the same psychiatrist?
I know. That's what I did.
How did they? I mean,
how could they have missed that?
How could they have not noticed? That said, it's not like we haven't, run up against that on Criminal Minds a million times.
Oh yeah.
Like when they find out so many times on Criminal Minds, they'll find out what the thing that links the people is, and you're like, wait a minute, you didn't check that?
You didn't check their driver's licenses?
Yeah, you didn't check their what? So yeah,
say, what?
It's and not like that is unique to this show, is my point.
Oh, no, it's not. No, it's not unique. It's just, it is just.
Please.
After watching all of the stuff that we've been watching, right?
Yeah.
And I'm looking at this and I guess I'm just tired of people not doing their job.
Yes, that is an issue. Well, I mean, you can go back and listen to our thoughts about a little show called Those Who Kill if you want to hear us being pissed about people not doing their job. Oh my God, those people. Worst detectives, worst psychiatrists. Oh my God, those people. But anyway, the point is, so they go and she goes to see the person who's she goes to find out who the two psychiatrists are, and both psychiatrists are out. Two of the three psychiatrists who work there are out. And the only one there is a what do you call it? A receptionist and the lady psychiatrist who also works there. Mm-hmm. Right?
And the minute you saw her,
she's the killer that second?
Yes.
Like there is the least surprising killer reveal you've ever seen in your life.
Well, now, and then I said to myself, am I tinged because she is the evil whatever 9 in Babylon 5, right?
Yeah. Oh, no,
He's
yeah.
the evil psychor.
She's been in so many things. It's Lee Garlington. She's been in so many things.
And she's so good.
I love her, yeah.
But the minute
the minute she's on screen, you're like, okay, well, there's your killer. Done.
There's your killer. Done.
Don't have to worry about it anymore. We know exactly who the killer is. Mission accomplished. But yes, so she's the killer.
Took them a while to get
plainly
there,
obvious. But they figure out
and
who
they
the
were
last
shocked.
two. Yeah. They figure out who the... I know, they were completely shocked. Well,
Shocked
because she
her.
specifically says that one of the doctors is out of town on a conference, and she's like, the other doctor, no one knows where he is. His family can't... his family hasn't heard from him. It's actually quite a mystery where the other psychiatrist in our practice is. And I'm like, I feel like you should be more concerned about that, lady. Oh, you definitely killed him and that just never comes up in the episode. And his rejection of your romantic relationship is what motivated you to go on this killing rampage. But that's never discussed in the episode. That's all just backstory that you and I figured out. Yeah, no, 100%.
No. I mean, we complain sometimes about Criminal Minds, but this is really bad.
I know. It's weird how in this show, like, nothing is explained. Because it's like, I think the only logic, because he's been missing for the amount of time the killings have been going on. And that's why they assume he's the killer. And they go to check out, right, the other houses of the missing victims. Right? Yeah. And because there's 2 women left on the list of people who have been to both the plastic surgeon and the psychiatrist. And she goes to one and Julian McMahon goes to the other. I don't know why she doesn't have backup. I have no idea why she doesn't have backup. It's insane.
This is what I'm complaining about. What she did, more than once.
Yeah.
Is baffling if she's supposed to be a profiler. She's supposed to be scared of jack of all trades.
Why is she going anywhere alone?
Yeah, why is she going anywhere alone?
Ever.
And that was Robert Davi's point.
Yeah. Because he yells at her for going alone just to see the plastic surgeon. Now she's going to check on a possible victim of the killer, and she's still going alone. What are you doing?
Yeah.
Yeah, that scene really bothered me.
Now we're getting to the stupidity of that we often saw in Criminal Minds as well.
Yeah, obviously.
This business of, the plot line needs her to, be put in jeopardy. So what the hell?
Yeah. She's going to be put in jeopardy.
But it's almost all go.
I was going to say that was the genius of The Inside. Where it's like, it's the woman who gets kidnapped every week. Yeah, because she's trying to get killed. Because she doesn't know how to feel alive if she's not, the victim of a twisted psychopath. Like it's the only way she identifies herself. Here, they're going to have to do a lot if they want us to believe that about Sam. So Lee Garlington, the real killer, is captured. The final woman is saved. They find the body of the other, like her sixth victim from the previous week.
Yes.
And last we hear about her is she's being checked by a psychologist to try and figure out what her motive was. And apparently, like, as Sam, predicts, her domineering mother had, like, never thought she was pretty enough and started taking her to plastic surgery consults when she was 11, which, yikes. So, and that's as far as we hear. And what I'm saying is, you've missed a scene. They've cut a scene, because this is the pilot, right? So I'm sure what they filmed was longer. We cut a scene where we find out that she was motivated when the doctors she was involved with, another one of the psychiatrists at her practice, left her for one of these plastic surgery women.
Yeah.
Right? And that was her motivation for getting revenge on all of these women who had successfully used plastic surgery to become more acceptable, blah, blah, blah. Like, I think that's what the backstory of this episode is, but obviously we'll never know because once the killer is under arrest, they don't get talked about or thought about again.
No, nothing.
Yes, they are very mission oriented on this show.
Yeah, and you can appreciate that.
I think you actually have to respect it, right? It's like,
that it is trying to do something that ultimately Criminal Minds was more successful at.
Oh, 100%. Yeah.
Okay.
But it's definitely had got the same goal.
Yeah. And it wants to use profiling, but it doesn't know how to use the profiling stuff. So you get, the usual, that you just go, which is why the Danish stuff, which is done 20 years later, and you're going, the Danish stuff, we had all of these problems too.
Yeah, we did.
It's like, but it was 20 years later. I mean, you can almost excuse the 90s
by comparison, I think.
By comparison. Yeah. Unless nobody in Denmark has heard of a serial killer.
I know, right?
Well, I mean, that's the impression you get, is that there were no serial killers. And so all of a sudden they're stunned.
Yeah.
By the idea that
they're constantly
they have
surrounded by serial killers, like rather suddenly.
Mm-hmm.
Suddenly there's serial killers everywhere in Denmark. Okay. So yes, Jack. So we see the body of Jack's latest victim, including the note for Sam, which he has written a note that says, "I miss you, Sam," in blood. Is it his own blood? Probably. Like, apparently all the blood samples are O positive, so that's actually very useful. Or maybe it's O negative. It's one of the O's. But the problem is that's whatever the blood type.
It's the one you have.
It's the one I have, and it's like the most positive or second most positive. The most most common or second most common blood type, because negative is the most common. I have the second most common, which is positive. So I am only good to donate blood to half of the population of Earth, not all of the population of Earth, which is the O negative people. So there you go.
Yeah.
Blood types are fascinating, people.
Yeah. So anyway, but what happens? Yes, but they can't figure out who this guy is.
Yeah, they have no idea.
He has obviously never been picked up. He has never had any. Well,
he's not in CODIS.
No, that's exactly it.
Yeah,
anywhere.
His DNA isn't on record anywhere. If that's even his blood. Like, it might not even be his blood. He might have taken 10 liters. That's too much. 8 liters of blood out of one victim, and for years he's been, like, keeping it in a fridge and using it to paint. Like, it's entirely possible that's what's going on here. All right, so then we get to the second episode, which is a guy is burning down houses.
Yes.
And here's something I noted about the show, which is the thing that makes it feel so different from Criminal Minds. And this might change, right? It's possible this is going to change, but Criminal Minds very much understands that it is a horror television show first and a detective show second. This is why Criminal Minds always includes scare scenes, kill scenes, focuses on the terror of the victims, right?
Yes.
This show, 2 episodes in, we've never, like...
It's a procedural.
It's a
regular procedural.
We saw that woman getting stalked in the opening, but that was it. It was a brief impressionistic sequence right at the opening.
Geez.
And that was it.
Impressionistic.
I think that's a fair description.
Well, yeah,
it's over the top. I will say
it's over the top camera work, I'll tell you.
Yes.
And editing.
Yes.
Everything.
It might be gilding the lily a bit to call it impressionistic. I'm not going to disagree with you. But it is,
Yes.
I am making the point that is like they're going very fantastical in their presentation. I think I would stand by that statement.
Hence the rotten music.
Oh, that's a whole other thing. We were not fans of the music on this show. I think that's clear by this point.
Both episodes.
Yeah, it doesn't have great music. All right, so there's a killer running around, and so they have to profile what is an arsonist like. Mm-hmm. And you actually have a couple of nice notes in there where she's like, I don't know if it's a normal arsonist. And Julie Mann's like, is that a thing? Like, are there normal arsonists? How was I not made aware of this? So I did enjoy that. I thought that was fun. Yeah. Right. And so they have to figure out who's this arsonist, right? Like, who's the arsonist? What is the, why is
the purpose of his fires?
And because the key is, right, at the crime scene, they find that he has splashed gasoline everywhere. And there are 2 interesting notes. One, that he is, like, ignited the gasoline by, like, using a flaming rat, which is really creepy. and that he has left toy soldiers at the crime scenes.
Yep.
Right? He has left toy tin soldiers at the crime scenes. And this is key because they know it's not because there have been no children at any of the crime scenes. The latest victim was a 70-year-old woman, and there have been all over, right? The different genders, different ages. Sometimes people lived alone. Sometimes it was couples, right? Different races. Like, there is no commonality. And so they quickly come to the conclusion that it's like the important part for him is not the victim, it's the house. Right?
Yes.
That is what is meaningful to the killer, but they don't know exactly what that is or why that is. And I gotta say, like, this episode had good pacing. I'm gonna say that this episode was paced well because very quickly we get more jack of all trades stuff because in a follow-up to what happened last week, right, with her being put on television, while she and Angel and her daughter were out, Jack has found out where they live, right? Yep. That quickly, found out where they live, gotten inside, and left a bouquet for her.
On the bed.
On her bed. So yeah, his romantic obsession is, like, massively over top. It's very creepy. They flee. I think completely understandably, right? All the cops rush the place to search the place, but of course Jack is long gone. And now they're panicking because what the hell are they supposed to do? Like, this has been 3 years of hiding. Angel is understandably upset. The daughter is understandably upset. And Bailey promises that he's going to figure out somewhere for them to live. But of course, Angel doesn't want her life completely upended. So, like, understandably, this is going to be a difficult situation for them to deal with going forward. And I'm interested to see where the plot goes with this. Or, like, if this keeps being an issue and if Angel's going to be keeping a character on the show. Hope she doesn't get killed. She seems very friendly. But, you know.
Well, we also are very fond of her from Babylon 5.
Yes, we are also very fond of her from Babylon 5. That is a big part of it. She was in a very great episode of Babylon 5.
Yeah.
All right, so we get so they start looking into the case, and so she's like, if this guy, and here, I think the logical inferences in the profiling were actually pretty well written this time. Because here's what she lays out. Basically, if this guy is running around killing people in different, like in the Troll tri-state area, right, from North Carolina down through Georgia and into the Virginias, right, if he's doing that, like, he can't have a job, right? He can't have a place he's got to be every day if his whole time is spent driving around looking for houses to burn down.
Yeah.
And anyone who plays with fire, like anyone who is an arsonist, she's like, arsonists usually start burning things when they're a kid and never stop, which is also true of arsonists, meaning, and she points out, and this is a very good observation, arsonists generally are going to have bad burn scars because, like, you don't stay lucky all that time. If the main activity of your life is setting things on fire, you're going to get burned. So they're like, we need to look for burn victims. We need to look for guys who don't have jobs. And we need to look for people who recently got out of jail because this guy has just started this and is doing this rampant crime spree of, like, burning things all over the place. And it started suddenly. It didn't ramp up. So in all likelihood, that's because he just got out of jail. So these are all really good inferences. Oh, she also says he'll probably be driving a Volkswagen Bug.
That was funny.
Because, and this isn't a thing that exists anymore. Like a, what do you call it? A stereotype that exists anymore. But there was a time when a Volkswagen Bug was, the cheapest car in the world.
Yep.
Yeah, it was the cheapest car in the world.
They
cost nothing to buy. Were very good gas mileage. Like, the whole concept of there being such a thing as, like, a car you can buy for a couple of $100 and is easy to maintain, that just doesn't exist anymore. But it's
you could actually fix them yourselves. I mean, your dad and I put the clutch. We had to replace the clutch, and we did it ourselves.
Yeah, like, that's the thing. They were simple cars. They were easy to maintain. Yeah, you didn't want to drive cross country in one, maybe. But
we took ours to Mexico.
There you go. You could, though,
more than once.
This is my point. You could. Like, It may not be the most comfortable drive, especially if you're a tall person.
Right? Although, no, this was funny. Henry's Henry's boss at Indian Affairs,
right,
was like 6'4", and he drove a Volkswagen.
There you go.
It was very comfortable. It was
I've been in them and they were a
cars.
little too tall. But then again, back then you could have the seat lowered. That's the thing. Like, you didn't have adjustable seats in the same way back then, but if like it was your car, you could just have the seat permanently lowered and it would actually be pretty comfortable. Because I've been in Bugs and I did not fit comfortably. But then again,
except when you were a baby.
Well, of course, when I was a baby, I fit comfortably. That's the whole thing. But yeah, so these are all very good, right, observations. But Sam goes one further, right? She goes and she says, okay, I want to go and I want to talk to an actual arsonist and see, because she's never worked on an arson case before. She's never done, so we get, the Ed Kemper style interview scene where she goes to talk to an arsonist who is, I just loved this actor. Thought he was a creepy monster. I think he did a great job. Yeah. I think this actor did a great job of being like a creepy dead ender, like monster who's like, yeah, I'm going to be in here for the rest of my life. So all I can do is harass people and make people's days worse. So that's what I'm going to do. All I can do is toy with people and, harass people. And it's like the first time I've been near a woman in years. So of course he's going to harass her. Like, that's who he is. He's a monster. But the point is, she finds that even more than most other kinds of serial killers, in the arsonist, this whole crave to destroy is often a cover for self-destructive behavior, right? Yeah. That these guys want to kill themselves, but can't face that, and so they're just trying to destroy everything.
Yeah.
It takes nerve to set yourself on fire, right? So you're just trying to destroy everything, and maybe if you get killed accidentally, you wouldn't be that sad about that.
Well, the thing is that when they were writing this profile too, what the profile said was that what the thing she noticed was that it seemed to be expanding the number of rooms.
Yeah, in the house.
In the house where the fire was first sort of set, and they were different rooms. And when she started to look at all of them.
And the key part is he's setting them from deeper and deeper in the house. Like the first houses he just set from the outside. Yep. And then he started going inside to set the fires, and then he's getting further and further inside the more he kills. So he's obviously working himself up to something. And so she puts out a plea, right? So they've got their list of possible suspects, guys who recently got out of jail, guys with burn scars, right? Things like this. And, she's looking for one who maybe recently lost a job, or as you said, just got out of jail. Something to be a stressor to trigger this. And so she also says, you know what? I'm going to go to the press goes to the press and says, here is the characteristics we're looking for. Loner. You might not think of him. And she goes out of her way, like some random Jack at the bar.
Yes.
Goes out of her way to say Jack on television in front of a screen.
Yeah.
Right? Just to make sure that it gets out there.
Yep.
And they actually get a hit off of the description, right, of this guy. And so they look into his backstory. And he was a monstrously abused guy who, when he was a kid, would be locked away by his parents in the attic of his house.
Yeah.
Right? Locked away in the attic of his house for days on end. Right? And preyed upon by rats, which is where his rat fixation came from. And, have these soldiers that he played with. And so now we've locked all of the pieces together. Yeah, it's all in one thing. So he's spotted, they run to the house he's at, and they manage to delay him outside. They usher the family out of the house, which is nice. And then they try to talk him down, but he ends up setting himself on fire. Yeah. And that is the cap for this character. That is how this character winds up. The tragic death of guy who set a lot of people on fire.
Yeah.
And just like in the previous episode, the minute he's dead, the show is like, and this is what I mean when I'm talking about like the big difference from Criminal Minds. It's just like, well, that part of the story is over.
Mm-hmm.
That part of the story is done. Let's just move on. No need to think or talk or worry about him anymore.
That's it.
And I don't know why I find that so funny, but I genuinely find it funny how quickly they move on in both of these episodes after they're done after they have resolved the quote unquote, like the plot of it. They're just like, yep, now we're out of here. Let's move on.
Yeah, it is going to be interesting going forward, though, how they're going to handle this jack of all trades.
Yeah, that's
stuff.
the thing I'm curious about, because I don't remember who the killer is. I know it's not Robert Davi. I know it's not any of the cast members. That part I remember. But at the end of the episode, we see Jack at his home base, watching her video, right? Watching the video of him, right? And obsessing over her. So we know he's going to continue being an active part of the show. We just don't know how yet. Yeah. And honestly, the question is, and this is something we don't find out about in the earlier part when they were first talking about Jack of all trades. Did he slow down his killing when he was busy being obsessed with her?
Well, we'll find out. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm hoping that. Well, no, that's the thing I most want to find out. Did his romantic obsession with her just did stalking her become a full-time job, and he actually killed fewer people when he was stalking her? So it's is she providing a valuable service to the world by inviting the serial killer to stalk her rather than go out and, look to kill other people?
Okay.
Is my question.
Yes. Okay. And the only thing that we've forgotten to discuss is that they found the Ghostbuster fire station.
Oh, right. Yes. That's right. I forgot to say. Yeah. We did not resolve the part of the plot where they're going to live now. So Bailey gets them a fake firehouse to live in. So it's literally a fake firehouse with fake firemen who are actually FBI agents who just hang out front of it all of the time. I thought this is a nice touch. I thought that was a good idea. Yeah. I actually really like that scene. And then they go through a steel door with fingerprint detection. And when you go through there, it's actually just a nice house on the inside and the upper floor.
Yeah. The upstairs is a nice apartment, a big apartment. And she can use and Angel can use the basic part of the fire. As I said, if you want to know what it looks like, it looks like the Ghostbusters.
Firehouse. Yeah, the old firehouse from the Ghostbusters. And Angel can use the bay where they would normally keep the
trucks
engines to do her metalwork. So it's honestly a perfect location for them. But yeah, you're right. I thought that was really nice, seeing the location they ended up in. That was a really nice scene. I was made very happy by that scene and the location. And it, again, made me think about the 90s and how much money there was to spend on television back then. Because it's when you watch this show, you think about the shoestring budget that people are forced to work with in television now. So many limited sets and people talking in rooms. You watch this show, every other scene, there's just a giant crowd of extras in the background. Yeah, you're constantly going to new locations. You're setting houses on fire. You're blowing things up. You're going to, and again, you got this giant firehouse set. You got the farm, you got the giant firehouse set. They are burning cash on this show, and I love watching it.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of things the internet has to answer for.
Yeah. But taking all the money out of the television, that's one of the worst.
No, because you can see it in Criminal Minds.
Yeah.
Right?
Oh, totally.
They had more money in the beginning than they did halfway through and later on, and as they're moving through, right? Mm-hmm. So it's very problematic in some ways.
Totally.
But yeah, I know it was, I don't know what to say. I'm listening to you. And I guess, the plot was fine and everything. I guess maybe I'm just serial killered out.
I know. So maybe just watching a classic Manhunter style serial killer show, maybe it can bring back your joy of watching serial killer fiction, which is a stupid thing for me to want to encourage in you, but I'm doing that anyway.
Well, the thing is that, because honestly, the music, for example, is so distracting.
It is. It's bad. It's really bad.
It overrides sometimes. And remember that we're watching things that are either taken from a DVD.
Yeah.
I swear
it's
people
from a DVD.
and we were, yes, because the second one didn't have Dutch subtitles, though. Did somebody videotape it or DVD?
We might end up watching episodes that someone literally VHS'd back in the 90s.
Yeah,
that is how hard it is to track these shows down.
Yeah, it's really weird.
Yeah.
Clean it up and see if people want to watch it.
Right.
But that costs money, and no, the shareholders need the money, not the programs.
Yeah.
I don't think so.
Well, again, I hate to be on the side of piracy, but in America, a court just ruled that libraries weren't allowed to preserve and lend video games, which is insane because how else who else is going to do this? The companies, video games. If you look at the history of video games, 90% of the companies to have ever made video games no longer exist. 95% of classic
Sierra.
video
Think
games.
about Sierra.
Think about Sierra. 95%
Wonderful
of classic
games.
video games, if the amount of video games, 95% of video games made between the 70s and today, there is no clear title of who actually owns them.
Yeah.
And without that clear title of who actually owns them, companies have no financial interest in preserving them, so they're not getting preserved. And the crazy part is, old television is the exact same way, because there used to be, now there's just 3 media companies, right? But in the past, it was essentially a law in America, right, that networks couldn't produce their own shows. It was anti-competitive to produce your own TV shows. All television shows had to be purchased from independent producers.
Mark Goodman.
Yeah, well, yeah, like Mark Goodman, like Stephen J. Cannell. Right?
Yeah.
Like Bochco, like all of these people, right?
Yeah.
The TV networks weren't allowed to make shows, or weren't allowed to make X amount of shows. Right? They had a limit, and so as a result, from the birth of television up until pretty recently, TV shows were produced by 100 different companies. And so the question becomes, well, who owns the rights to those shows? And there's frequently not an easy answer to that question. Not a simple, X, Y, or Z. Steve owns it. Right? So you left with all of these shows that are in limbo. All of these shows from the 1980s that we would love to see again, that nobody even knows who owns them, let alone how to put it out there. And the answer to preserving these would be, just for an online library to just preserve them for everybody. Because when there's a library, nobody's expecting residuals because nobody's making any money off of it. Yes. But they don't get allowed to be put into libraries, and that's why we're in this horrible bind. So yeah, it's a rough situation. And I'm not saying that you and I are helping, the purposes of archiving these things. But at the same time, I do think it's important to raise awareness of the history of television, because I can read the genius of archive.org, and I hope it survives this attack, because
well, the Wayback Machine is sort of up. I had to tell my students.
It is coming back now.
Yeah.
But right now, they are the only people out there keeping books alive, right? And
Gutenberg too.
Yeah, Gutenberg is for very old books. Right.
Yes.
Gutenberg is generally for very old books. Archive, is doing such a great job of protecting websites. It's protecting books. It's protecting magazines, newspapers. They're getting all of this huge
and all of these old, you can go there and find all sorts of clips, old archaeology clips in black and white, and they're barely, you can barely hear sometimes the sound and stuff like that, but they're saving them for posterity because people did in the days of the early cameras. Archaeologists would take them with them
everywhere.
Right?
Yes.
And doesn't mean they could do a good job because, film back then and not a lot of film survived. I mean,
But
it's
there's important historical documentation being made.
Yeah.
All of the time. And you know what? We need that for television and video games as well.
Of course we
just do. And it's frustrating that we're not getting it.
And this is why people have their VHSs, put it up in different places.
Well, right now,
what
Archive. I mean, this is the thing that impressed me so much. What Archive.org is doing right now is they are currently, there's this woman, I'm blanking on her name. She was a librarian, right? Well, I think she's still alive. But anyway, she's a librarian. And I think she's from Washington, D.C. It's not important where she's from, I now realize for the story. But the point is, she noticed that essentially, all of this television is ephemeral, right? Because she started finding out, and this is right, because she had been watching, she was in her 30s in the 1970s, and she'd been watching her TV her whole life, and she, as she got further and further being a librarian, she's like, there's no way to watch the television of my youth. And beyond the actual shows, some of which get saved, some of which gets re-released, what about the news broadcasts? What about the commercials? What about the community bulletins? So what she did was, she went and she bought 3 VCRs, right? And turned one to the local ABC affiliate, one to the NBC affiliate, one to the CBS affiliate in her town, and bought stacks and stacks and stacks of 8-hour tapes, and just ran those VCRs 24 hours a day.
Wow.
And she has 14,000 tapes.
Hours.
No, not
tapes.
hours.
Oh,
tapes.
Tapes.
Yes, that's my point. And she is partnered with archive.org to essentially back up all of these digitally so everyone will have access to this 25 years of television history.
Yeah.
Because that's what libraries are for. And I know that, and I recognize as I'm saying this, that I don't think that the show Profiler is an important part of the history of television in that way, okay? I don't. But I think it's worth recognizing that this show, the difficulty we had tracking down this show is endemic, right? To that period of television as a whole. To the pre-streaming area.
Jeez, yes.
It just is. But of course, then we have their own problems with the streaming area because when they kill a streaming show, it just goes away because nobody taped it. So, thank God there are still pirates out there ripping stuff off of Disney Plus, or these shows would actually cease to exist.
Yeah. It is
immoral what happens sometimes. And I know it might be a stretch for some people for me to call it immoral, but I'm willing to call it immoral. And I think you should be too.
Yeah, all of these things, and it's so time consuming.
It is.
If I didn't have to work, I would probably do more of that sort of stuff because I do have things, archive work, because it needs to be done. I mean, and I don't have to do it properly.
Yeah.
Somebody else, all I have to do is make copies of stuff and somebody else can take care of it.
Yeah. But the point is, the work needs to get done, and just thank heavens there are librarians out there doing it. And by the way, if you can financially support archive.org, they need the money now more than ever, now that they're dealing with this people trying to attack them thing.
Yeah.
Man.
Well, yeah. They don't want anybody to actually know what life was really like.
I know.
Even if it's only in bits and pieces.
Yeah, people trying to destroy history.
Yeah, I mean, it's still, I don't think I can still can't see the original, or did I run into it? The original, that's what's nice about the British stuff.
What's that?
They tend to keep, not everything, because I gave my students, there's an archaeologist called John Romer. He was an Egyptologist, right?
Okay.
And he did, so my students have to watch basically 6 hours of his documentaries.
All right.
And they're excellent. But you can't get them anywhere else. They're on YouTube. Nobody has pulled them. And you can get Romer's books. But nobody's pulled them. It's fine. But somebody VHS or beta taped them, and they're not good quality, of course.
Yeah.
But, that's sometimes the only way to do it, and,
wow. I mean,
and
it's horrific.
And
that's where we are.
Yeah. And, before we had beta and
VHS
and VHS, if you didn't make it and if you weren't sitting in front of the television, it was gone.
Yep. You
for
never
the
saw
most
it.
part.
That's
Again,
just a
because
fact.
they didn't do reruns because there was always new stuff going on.
Mm-hmm.
Some stuff it was all taped. The question is whether they kept it.
I was watching watching an interview with.
That's why Criterion is so great.
I was watching an episode of an interview with my beloved John Glover, right?
Yeah,
and he was talking about like some show he was on from the 80s. And it's like, and how he, how people were so confused by how he talked. And he's like, no, that's just an authentic Baltimore accent. It just sounds weird because you never see it on television. And I got to my head, I would love to see what that sounds like. And then I realized there's no way for me to see this show. The show doesn't exist anymore. Like, it's gone. And it was never released on VHS. It was never released on DVD. So, like, this 3 years of a TV show that one of my favorite actors, John Glover, did, there's no way to see that show. Like, there's no way to see him do this. Like, there's no way for me to find out what this accent of his was like. And I was kind of horrified by that, No, unless there's people out there who have it on VHS and who will put it on archive.org or YouTube or whatever. So, yeah, people have got to fix copyright fast, is what I'm saying. Time for an end to copyright. Not a complete end, obviously, but that's another conversation. All right, so I did not expect this to be a long conversation about copyright and archival, the importance of archivery, but this is a really important issue that more people need to be worried about. It really is. And I'm sure as we watch old episodes of The Profiler and Pretender, it's only going to keep coming up.
Yes.
I really believe that to be true. All right. So, for now, though, if you have any questions, if you have any comments, if there's any profiling-related fiction you'd like us to check out, please drop us a line at profilingcriminalminds@gmail.com. We would love to hear from you. If you were listening on an app or podcatcher, please be sure to rate, review, and subscribe. That's how people find out about the show. And this is the most important part. I can't stress this part enough. Join us back here next week so that you can continue to listen to us talking about Profiler, a show you may not have even realized existed.
Yep.
We'll see you back here for that. But until then, I'll say that's right. Au revoir.
And have a good week.